In this video I will explain the instructional insights that I have for the game Cats and Dogs, and to summarize, it has a really high potential with a lot of benefits, social wise and strategy wise, but at the same time it has the same amount of challenges, and if we not overcome them as instructors, then the game won't have its effect, and moreover the children might get into a slump. So first of all, the game is really complicated, and it's more complicated than you maybe assume. Well, first of all, the game was selected for the national championships for mathematical games for elementary school students, meaning the students, the best mathematical students of elementary school of a nation competed in it to test their skills and mathematical understandings. And I assume that our students are not the very best mathematicians of your country. Therefore, they are not immediately at the level that we assume them to be in understanding such games that needed for the game to be played perfectly. The game is about the territorial dominance and strong emphasis on strategy, and with this the term strategy is something new for, I guess, the children, if you have the students. And in the ideal case, to the end of the game, there will be also mathematical calculation, meaning with perfect play to the end of the game, you will need to be calculating your last possible options. I have never come to the point that it was important, the mathematical part of calculation to the end of the game, but technically you can use it also if you have good students that understand the game really deeply. So our main objective is for the students to formulate an own strategy, to use it, to try it, test it, and if it fails, reflect on it and try to better it or copy it from your opponent until it works. So there is a lot of failure, a lot of testing, trying out, and this is also something that we require for our students, maybe for the first time in this strategy course, that they actually are fine with, they don't give up just because they fail once. And our goal is not to make them play the perfect moves, but instead try to get some cognitive benefits from it. So just getting some advancement, preferably by their own. And therefore, again, to summarize, there is a huge potential in many different subjects for the students with this game. But we as instructors have also a lot to work to do so that the potential can rise. So the time frame for my own games in my course was only 5 minutes per game, which is actually something bad, because for example, with the first tactical exercise, I will show you the position again. It's this one. Here you'll need to calculate all the possibilities, even if it's only 3, and then you can find out which is the best one. But this will certainly take you more than 5 seconds. And my students did play it only for 5 seconds a move, meaning they just played the move without thinking at all. If they don't think, don't formulate a strategy. The best ones did have a strategy. It was actually a good one, the best one. But the weaker ones did not formulate a strategy. They always lost, and then they lost the motivation to play the game, and that was waste time, and they didn't want to continue the game after all at the end. So this is the worst case outcome, and this is something we want to, well, avoid. The inventor and my sources, actually the game is was founded, the rules, by Simon Norton, and Snort is because of his name, obviously. 30 years later it was, well, called Cats and Dogs, so it's the same game but slightly more attractive for students. And finally it was featured in the strategy games course, where I have many of the games that I present to you. If you want to read the rules, here they are again. You can just stop and read it. I continue with the strategy. With strategy, I mean this is something that an ideal student, or maybe we ourselves, would think about the game. The goal is not to tell the students this, but for them to come up with it by themselves. So the goal is to secure the largest possible territory for, well, your own side, obviously. And if you understand the detail, then you can also think about, well, what should I do to achieve the goal and what should I not do? It's fine to explain them, give them hints what is the goal and how to come to the goal. But if, for example, you're a teacher, the goal is not to tell your students that 7 times 7 is 49, but instead to give them some hints so they can come closer by themselves to the goal. So, if the goal is to secure the largest possible territory, then spreading out is a good strategy to get to it. And the idea is to gain space from all over the board, not just on the corner. You have to be efficient, and that means if you are already secure an empty square, try to secure squares that you haven't secured yet. This is something that's pretty basic and obvious for us, but for students who are probably assuming encountering this problem the first time in their lives, this is far from obvious, and actually getting them to this level is already the whole benefit of the game. So do not dare to tell them this, because that's our goal for them to think by themselves. And finally, this prophylaxis, that means if the opponent makes some bunkers, then you need to destroy them or to undermine them. I will give you an example over the board shortly. So what are our challenges? And I cannot give you the answer how to overcome the challenges, but to notice the challenges is already a big part to give the best instructional feedback for the students to progress. So first of all, the core goal is that the students will develop by themselves. It's not for us to tell them this is the best strategy, you play it like this, then they can play the game with perfect moves, but the idea is not to explain them how to beat their opponents in the game, but instead make them better in maybe chess, maybe maths in school, maybe their life. So again, we don't need to teach them the game, we need to help them learn the game by themselves. This is the core goal of all strategy games, and especially this one. So the typical mistakes that the students like to do is early bunkering. By that I mean that they retreat into their own corners and try to, well, have their own space and be happy with it, but that leaves them too much open for the opponent to take space that is left. And the other mistake is just not to think at all, or just focusing on your own goal, and then you don't see, well, your opponent. I will give you some examples. So these are some of the positions that I have. Here is the red found out by himself what is the best strategy. Blue didn't have the best strategy yet, and the game is basically already over because blue is trapped and red has more domination over the board. This is another example. Both players are not playing perfectly, which is actually good because we have a game and both can progress and better themselves. But for example, this is an example of bunkering, even if it's in the middle of the board, because blue started way too early to occupy the spaces. He has them already. This is also just an example of something that is logically obvious to us, but it's not obvious to the students, and therefore this is one of the benefits of the game, that they will try to get these logical ideas how to think generally. And another part of real bunkering, well, there we have it, the blue bunker. He has 3 more spaces that he can occupy, but red has everything here under his control and blue cannot get to the other side. So this is just an example how a bad game works, but it doesn't mean that we should disallow such playing, because they should play the game. They have to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect, and this is what you will encounter. And then your goal is preferably for them themselves to understand what went wrong, and if not, give them some hints so they feel well motivated to search and look for improvements instead of immediately giving up. So the core problem that's encountered in my own praxis is the game just invites for the students simply to play fast, impulsively, without any real thinking, like 5 seconds per move. That's actually the worst case, and then the whole game in itself doesn't give you much benefit. After maybe 1 or 1.5 hours, the game was done. Some understood the game, some didn't. Then I just continued, but the game didn't give the results that I wanted the game to have. And the main one of the main downsides, if we don't break this this line that's developing by letting the children play the game by this way, is that they also lose the fun, because they don't understand what they have to do, what they can improve. Then they just see and notice that they lose every single game, and then it's obviously no fun, and our whole idea of developing the mind through strategy game loses its meaning. So what we have to convey to the students: first of all, the best strategy always wins the game. So the strategy starts already with the first move. If you lose, well, try to improve, try to see what you can do better, what did the opponent do better, maybe you can try to copy it. And definitely it's not about just playing fast. Even if you play in the end the perfect way, the game might be already over. And the tips that you can actually give your students in my opinion, is first of all try to distribute the pieces across the board. Don't tell them how to distribute, but just that you should gain space in all direction as fast as possible and undermine the enemy bunkers before, well, they grow too large. I'll give you the examples on the board. There we have it. So first of all, this is an example of just impulsive play. The students, this is how the game continued. This is the first tactical exercise. The blue player just literally continued with the with the white squares and lost trivially the game. There was zero really thinking or testing. It was just I make moves, and in the end, well, I suddenly lost. And then we repeat the game over and over again. No real benefits for the cognitive progress. This is just the example that I mean with prophylactical thinking. Let me change this piece to red to give you the example. So if red is to move, he could potentially put it on b2, and then all of these squares is under his control, and he can occupy them later. He doesn't need to do it now, but these 5 belong to him. At the same time, if it's blue to move, then you obviously have to destroy his side, and by putting it on b2, you simply you defend these squares, meaning that with just this single move you gained potentially you took away 3 additional squares that your opponents could play. And as you have seen, just one single move can already make the difference between one game and a lost game. And finally, this is the perfect strategy because you have to dominate as many squares as possible. Again, don't tell this to children, they have to get it by themselves, but the upside is that you can attack the most squares with the least amount of pieces. You can also do an exercise like try to dominate the whole board with as few pieces as possible, and maybe the students will come to the conclusion by themselves. And one of the upsides is, for example, in this case, blue controls these 4 squares completely because red cannot occupy them. In the same time, blue doesn't have to defend them. He can just spread out in every other direction, and these 4 are already his forever. Usually this is already a winning game for blue. Now back to the presentation. So what I observed with my students in my courses gave this game. So again, the game does have high potential, even maybe the best potential of all the games, but the way I implemented it, it didn't work out. I still present it to you, obviously, and I have had many thoughts that I'm sharing with you right now with this video, with preparation for this video, and I do think I can improve it, and you should obviously do it too, so we get the benefit out of this game. So I have no solution how we can achieve this, but this is the goal for us to achieve this progress, this kind of level, also a character-wise growth, like not giving up when you lose and struggle, but keep on moving and improving. So by leaving the students alone, they won't progress with this game. So don't do it, but instead you need to guide them. And a benefit of this game, in case you have equal opponents that are playing an equally good strategy, or for example both are playing the best one, then to the end of the game there's really this tactical nuances that you have to calculate all the possibilities as much as you can. And this is also something good for, well, chess and also real life, just to seek and search for every available possibility. And you cannot demand the best strategy, and I mean this strategy, from the students, because it needs well, a lot of understanding of space and how to occupy space, and also how to move the pieces so they, like a puzzle piece, that well, you have everything covered and you have no holes in your strategy. This is something that is way advanced thinking. So at least for the students for which this course is designed, that maybe learn the first time in their life about something like dominance of the chessboard, this is far from obvious. Therefore, do not expect and do not demand it from your students, but give them time and give them hints so they may come up with it by themselves. So essentially, this is the whole well, challenge and potential of the game. There are many valuable concepts for students, and also essentially that they have to realize that thinking even about your very first move might decide the outcome of the game. So this is exactly the opposite, for example, of Slime Trail, where your first 5 or 10 moves don't matter, so they just keep well, getting used to it. This is something new, and even just the realization that you need to think about each and every move, even the very first one where you have so many moves, since having many moves well, makes you intuitively just choose any one of them and not think any further, but instead really try to actively show them that it does matter, even if they don't find the best move, is already a really huge step for well, the cognitive goals that I have with this course. And for the final words to this game, there is the math behind the center rule. So the really only reason for the central rule that the dog is prohibited to move to e4 is only because technically the second player could just mirror the moves of the first player and always win the game. Since our students, I assume, won't come to this conclusion by themselves, you can also omit the move, or just especially don't care if it happens later in the game, as long as it is not specifically the mirroring strategy. It doesn't matter. It also doesn't matter where you start the game, or whether you start with the cats or the dogs. If you have a real mathematician in your class, you can also put it as a logical riddle to give the students food for thought. Why not? Why there is a rule about the central squares, and make them come or explain to the conclusion why it's the case, and how the second player just simply wins. It's more about mathematics and less about playing, but any benefit in any direction is always a benefit. And finally, you can think about playing the game twice. So each player gets a turn to start. But in this case, for this game, I do not think that it's much of a difference, because the second player isn't worse as far as I know. So this was it for the instructional guide. It was a long video, but I did try to give you all the information that I have, and also to explain why we have to be really careful as instructors to get the most benefit out of this game. It has a lot of potential, but there is also a lot of work for us as instructors to do. And well, I wish that you do better with the game that I did in my courses.